happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, and even though it's not terribly flattering, I've donned my fun apparel.
Me too. You like my tie? Can only wear these a couple of times a year.
We get even worse next week.
Well, in the news this week, the United States of America will not send any high-level officials to the Sochi Olympics, though there are at least 2 out lesbians in the delegation and a couple of closet cases.
This is a very interesting development, which we will discuss at length at the top of the show. In other headlines, a multitude of U.S. federal agencies are advancing coverage for legally married same-sex couples.
There have been more same-sex marriages in Illinois, but you have to have a terminal illness to jump the gun.
The Advocate magazine, as I'm sure you've heard all over the mainstream news, has reached a new low in naming Pope Francis its Person of the Year, in spite of all the laudatory comments by the mainstream news. We'll tell you who's far more deserving of this honor this year.
In India, 40 cities saw protests against the Supreme Court there's reinstatement of anti-sodomy laws, and actions are held in solidarity around the world.
Including here. A Moscow gay bar has been assaulted again and vandalized by a mob of 100, we think, anti-gay thugs. There's some debate about their motivations.
The White House has offered 5 reasons why the Affordable Care Act is good for LGBT folks.
And Andy will unveil his top 10 theater picks of the year, maybe. But we start with this White House-Russia deal, which I find just fascinating and have many theories about.
So there was a lot of pressure on, come on now, tell us who's going to the Olympics to represent the United States. In other countries, heads of state have been dropping out.
France said the president isn't going. Germany said the president isn't going. Other countries are beginning to fall into line. And usually by this time, the U.S. would have announced its delegation. It was getting very late. That's one reason there was pressure. And Michelle Obama went to the London Olympics. Presidents Bush have gone to previous Olympics. Did Obama go to one of them? Maybe somewhere. It is traditional for the president or his wife or the vice president or his wife.
Well, went to that one where we won the hockey prize, the gold medal.
Yes,
remember that?
Yes. Was that Alberta?
He was the vice president of the United States.
Yes. The Miracle in Canada or whatever. So everyone's waiting, you know, will Obama go, will he not, who's he going to send? So the announcement comes out this week. Now, normally when they have an announcement that they think may be controversial, they wait till a Friday night to announce it. But this week, the announcement came Tuesday. Shocking. This is a great leap forward.
So you look down the list, and what pops out?
Well, first of all, no president of the United States, no first lady of the United States.
No high-level official. The highest level official.
No vice president of the United States.
The highest level official.
No wife of the vice president. No cabinet secretary.
The highest level was a deputy secretary of state. So, but the delegation will be led for the opening ceremonies by Janet Napolitano, the former head of Homeland Security, who we've been telling, you know, everybody knows is a closet case.
This seems awfully ironic to send a closeted lesbian to head the delegation.
Who has no particular relationship to
the Olympics.
She's from Arizona, for God's sakes, the Winter Olympics.
And currently president of the University of California.
Yeah.
Who knows what's in store? Well, I have my theories. We'll get to it.
Well, actually, the theory is that they want her to find Edward Snowden and lock him up.
That's possible. But what they do is they send a delegation of 5 to the opening ceremonies and a delegation of 5 to the closing ceremonies. So in the opening ceremonies, we have closet case Janet Napolitano. We have out proud lesbian Billie Jean King, tennis player to the Winter Olympics. Okay.
It's a year-round sport.
Brian Boitano, gold medal winning figure skater.
Who has been very coy about his sexual orientation, although I know a lot of people who know he's gay. I mean, you know.
He is gay, but he's also closeted. More on that in a moment. And then they're also sending this out lesbian ice hockey player, Caitlin Cahoe, and a few other skaters, Eric Hayden and what's her name? I've lost it.
So they're all going to jail.
Well, no, here's the
Billie
thing.
Jean wants them to go to jail. She wants them to speak out about the anti-gay Russian laws. I mean, by the way, let me just state my position. Nobody should be going to Sochi. Nobody.
Well,
Nobody
that's
should be
the other
going
thing.
there. The Olympics should be held someplace else. That's the position of the Gay USA show.
Couldn't agree. Well, I better agree if that's the position of the Gay USA show. But I do agree with that. But since that is not the decision, I think this is an extremely clever solution. First of all, someone sent me an email saying, what do we think of this? And my answer was, I think it is just stunningly brilliant for the president to give Janet Napolitano and Brian Boitano such a high-level platform to come out.
Well, there you are. Because they're going to be, because whether or not they come out, they're going to be asked questions about what are you going to say about the anti-gay treatment in Russia.
That's going to be the...
It might move them.
It's going to be the #1 story, and it's very hard for me to believe, actually, that they would accept this assignment, knowing this is the #1 story,
So you think
knowing
they're
there are
coming out?
closet cases. I think it's highly possible. Now, I'm not laying any money on it. Maybe I should lay some money on it.
They have Janet, they have an anti-discrimination law in California, so if you come out, you can't be fired for that.
Well, she's now been the president of the University of California for a while. She's primarily hanging out with out gay people in California. And
We didn't have any of them at Homeland Security?
well, I rest my case on her performance, but I think it's entirely possible that this could happen at the Olympics. And here's the real footnote. So they announced, the news comes out, President not going to the Olympics, Biden not going to the Olympics, U.S. delegation includes 2 out gay people. So the San Francisco Chronicle sees that headline, takes a look at the list, and announces gay people Billie Jean King and Brian Boitano are going to the Olympics. Except that he's not out.
Well,
and the other gay person who's out is this hockey player, Caitlin Cahoe.
I see.
So now Brian Boitano is in this position of, he's been outed by the San Francisco Chronicle, which has
He has been reported to be gay, as I like to say.
And
which he is.
Also reported privately by large swaths of gay people. So now he's going to get asked, and it's a little late for him to keep saying, I don't like to talk about my private life.
And we try to explain. Now, I know some of our viewers get a little uncomfortable when we talk like this about people, but I mean, this is a guy who does lead an open gay life.
Absolutely.
And, you've got to expect, if you're in the public eye, that it's going to get reported on. And for the purposes of your own self-respect, for all of us, it's very important. We kind of figured that out when we were in our 20s, but,
It just seems to me impossible that these well-known closet cases, celebrity closet cases, are going to go to Sochi and think that they can remain private about this.
We're laughing, and we're going to talk a lot more about what's going on in Russia these days. By the way, Putin, is a fairly clever guy. He's going to be releasing Pussy Riot this week in order to. I mean, he always finds a way to try to counter what's going on. But folks,
I think he's actually rather awkward and not very adept at this.
He's hanging on to the Ukraine.
Well, it's also fun that at the White House briefing the morning after this delegation was announced, who's standing up to ask questions about this? Not just the Washington Blade reporter, who's now official there, but Chuck Todd of NBC, the ABC reporter, they're all onto this now.
But again, we're laughing and smiling a little bit about this. The situation is so dire there, and I want to jump the gun on all of our stories that are coming out of there. But to read what happened to the gay bar in the gay bar called Central Station in Moscow. I mean, in this case, a mob of 100 people dismantled the roof of the building, stole equipment. It was described as a professional raiding company. The owner of this bar has had to file 30 complaints to police, and the police have not responded to any of them.
They completely ignored.
So, I mean,
there is some question. There are reports that this has to do with the ownership of the bar and a landlord-tenant dispute and all of that, but certainly this bar has been shot up. It has been attacked with poison gas. And this is a gay bar. So, and some of the attacks have been clearly homophobic.
And if you are thinking of going to Sochi, the gay scene there is in decline, according to press reports.
Everybody's left town the minute the spotlight hit there. All right, but we want to go back to other news, and we'll come back to more Russian news and more international
news. The big news in this country, and maybe it's because it's the end of the year, some of the agencies were probably given deadlines, but they all seem to be coming out with these statements and advisories and guidelines and guidances, as they call them, about how same-sex couples who are married are supposed to be treated wherever you live, whether if you got legally married, wherever you live in this country. So, the Social Security Administration has started to pay survivors' benefits to same-sex surviving partners who were in legal marriages. The acting commissioner, Carolyn Colvin, said, "Our goal is to treat all Americans with dignity and respect."
Yeah, but they're only paying these benefits to people in states where same-sex marriage is legal. They are compiling a list of others who they have on hold. They may or may not get around to that, but the Social Security rules specifically deal with your state of residence, not your state of where you were married.
What about the IRS? They've issued a guidance providing greater tax equity for married same-sex couples previously unable to list a spouse on their employer's insurance plan.
Okay. Now, you can have various feelings about this, but the U.S. Department of Education has said that in assessing financial aid requests, they will now recognize and acknowledge same-sex marriages. So they will...
It could help, it could hurt.
Well, it's hard to see how it would help because they're now taking two incomes into account in judging who is eligible for federal aid. Right. So unless the married partner has no income, and that would make it neutral, if you're adding income, that's going to make you less eligible for federal aid, and we're fine with that.
We're fine with that, except for the fact that we still are treated unequally by many states.
Sure. But we're talking about federal.
Right. Now, the U.S. Customs Bureau will recognize same-sex couples as families, so when you come to the border, you come up together now.
Yes, that has been a big problem historically.
And I assume this is...
And it's not just marrieds. It's couples who are cohabiting, who have always had a problem at the border being recognized as couples, as families. But now the Customs Department will do that, will recognize those families. And there's also a great, I think, decision by a federal judge in Utah, who has struck down part of the cohabitation law there. They have a law that said a married couple cannot have any other partners, not legally married, being held out as, I guess, even cohabiting, or certainly holding themselves out as part of the family.
This is a defense against polygamy.
Yes.
But this decision does not change the law that's bigamy laws, which says you can't marry
or polygamy laws.
More than one person at a time.
This is a case brought by the stars of the Sister Wives television show, reality show, which is a polygamous family. or polyamorous family, one man, one wife, I guess, and other women living together in the family. And they said, look, it's no business. We're not holding ourselves out as having multiple legal wives. We're just people who are living together, and how dare the state interfere? And the judge's decision said, relied on the Lawrence v. Texas decision.
Privacy.
And yes, and this is a decision about privacy. But the right wing, of course,
saying,
Tony,
yeah, we told you gay marriage and sodomy is going to lead to polygamy, which
yes.
it's not.
That's a total lie from the right wing. This only has to do with the privacy of consenting adults living together, and does not legalize polygamy or multiple marriage.
Okay, but bad news from Houston, where a Harris County judge blocked the city from providing domestic partner benefits. It's a suit brought by the county Republican chair.
Yeah.
But there is going to be a hearing on January 6th, but the city which is led by Anise Parker, the out lesbian, is immediately
Mayor.
seeking a what?
Mayor.
Yes, the mayor is seeking a reversal of that.
She sort of arbitrarily announced that they would give partner benefits a month or two ago, and the Republicans have jumped in to try to stop that, and the judge has suspended the application of her rule, Anise Parker's, pending this hearing. In Illinois, 2 more early marriages. Same-sex marriage is not supposed to take effect till next June, but hardship cases are coming up and popping up.
People who are certifiably going to die, basically, and there's a form you have to fill out, and then you got to get a doctor's note.
Yeah, but
that you have a life-threatening illness.
A federal judge had first one couple was approved for early marriage, and then 2 more couples were approved, and now they're saying
now it's going to be polygamy.
It's a whole process, many marriages. A whole process will be in place.
But only if you have a terminal illness.
Well, this is likely to lead the legislature in January to say, please, enough of this. Let's just do it and get it done.
And there's a hell of a story coming out of North Dakota. A man married to a man is being allowed by the Attorney General to marry a woman without divorcing the man. But that's, of course, going to make him a bigamist to the federal government, because the federal government recognizes the first one.
Or back in the state where he was married to the man, California or wherever that was.
Or any state that he goes to that recognizes it.
Exactly. And even states that don't allow same-sex marriage may recognize it, and like Oregon. And then certainly the opposite-sex marriage becomes bigamous there, too.
As my most conservative brother said, this same-sex marriage stuff, it's going to lead to a mess. Well, we're cleaning it up. We're cleaning it up now.
Well, we're trying. In New Jersey, after the court made same-sex marriage legal, there was still a marriage bill pending in the legislature, and there was some thought of going ahead and passing that. But now it has been withdrawn, in part because the proposed bill had stronger religious exemptions than the court
I wouldn't call
ruling
them
did.
stronger. I would call them worse
Yes,
religious
worse.
exemptions.
Let's be clear here. Worse.
Now, basically, we're going to be treated equally.
Yes.
We're not going to have these special religious things under our marriage law.
And the marriage case in Illinois, which was still pending even after the legislature had passed same-sex marriage, has been dismissed by a court as moot. So that's not going forward either.
In Pennsylvania, a federal judge is keeping the challenge to the law banning gay marriage on track for trial by preventing appellate review at this time. He has scheduled the trial for June 9th. I mean, come on.
All you have to do is take the transcript of the Prop 8 trial and insert it in your record.
Or just read Justice Scalia's brief. He tells you how to make that decision.
And we're happy to announce we now have 50 out of 50. All National Guards are now giving spousal ID cards and benefits to same-sex spouses.
There was
National
massive
Guard.
resistance in the South but they
not so massive. They caved within a month or two.
Georgia was the last to come around.
No, it was not. Mississippi was the last to come around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
It's a good thing that Ann is on this show. Because
it's a good thing we're both here.
Yes. Now, domestic partnerships are still, some places can't do marriage, so they're doing domestic partnerships. In Pensacola, Florida, they passed a registry there, 8-1. It, of course, domestic partners, the gateway drug to marriage. Anyway, they passed it on December 12th. It applies to gay and non-gay couples, a small number of rights, medical decisions, hospital visitation, prison visitation, participation in the education of your children and all that kind of stuff, notification of emergency. But now 14 cities and counties in Florida now have this. That's covering half the population of the state, and this is the first city west of Tallahassee to do so. No one showed up to testify against it.
Nadine Smith of Equality Florida is quite optimistic about the possibility of legalizing same-sex marriage in Florida in the near future.
And then in Arizona, Cottonwood is the fifth city in the state to pass a domestic partner ordinance. Phoenix has yet to do so.
Phoenix is a pretty conservative place.
There you are.
Tucson's the liberal place.
Yeah.
And others back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. Well, another big controversy popped up this week having to do with Duck Dynasty.
Oh.
Who thought we would say Duck Dynasty and gay in the same sentence? But we are.
You have to explain this because I've never seen it.
Well, I've never seen it either, but I at least know what it is as opposed to.
Dynasty.
It is a reality show covering sort of mountain camouflage wearing duck hunters, a happy little Christian family.
Yeah.
And the patriarch is this guy, Phil Robertson, who is the older guy, and the younger generations are a little more progressive in relative terms. Phil is sort of the, crazy grandpa.
Crusty but benign? Maybe not so benign.
I don't know. He gave an interview to GQ.
Oh.
That shows you how, ubiquitous Duck Dynasty is. He said he can't understand why gay men are gay because a vagina as a man would be more desirable than a man's anus. Really? And that homosexuality is a sin, and it's not right, and it's against God, and he's
What
very
should we do with
Christian.
them? What should we do with them?
Well, it took about 10 minutes for people to land on him, and now he says, "I don't hate anybody. I may be different from you."
If
but,
this is going to let me lose my contract, I apologize if I've offended anyone.
Yeah. Well, then I'm wondering what's going to happen to Bob Newhart, because he, it turns out, is headlining something called the Legatus Summit, Legatus.
It's the Domino's Pizza fortune that pays for this.
February in Orlando, which is a conference of the really ultra-right anti-gay people.
But I read this story, and everybody's complaining about Bob Newhart going to this thing. Everybody goes to a Catholic church, or a lot of other churches, is going to a place that is dedicated to that we are sinful and we are wrong. I realize some do it a little bit more strenuously than others, but they all do it. So what are we going to say?
Oh, but Bob's,
he was
Uncle Bob.
Remember him in In and Out, the movie where he played the anti-gay principal? He came around at the end.
Well, this is
so
a
maybe
conference.
this is his repentance.
To the Catholics?
For coming around.
Yeah, well, Rick Santorum and Bill Donahue will also be at this conference. So, but I haven't seen any follow-up, so I don't know what's going to happen with that one.
Well, I know what's going to happen with my Advocate subscription if I had one. That's it for them. I mean, you probably read, because it was on mainstream news, that the Advocate gay magazine, which I read before Stonewall, has named Jorge Bergoglio, you may know him as Pope Francis, as the person of the year, the Pope. Now, this is the most pathetic, self-loathing thing I have ever seen from a gay publication that I can think of.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, but go ahead.
Well, but as we pointed out, when we talked about when Time magazine did this, he's anti-woman, he's anti-gay. He tries to act like his real person, but all he's doing is doing a lot of good PR for a patriarchal structure that people shouldn't buy into. And to treat this as something because he made a couple of noises that sounded vaguely anti-gay. I mean, if you pro-gay, if you need that kind of validation, you got a problem. I'm just saying.
Both Time magazine and The Advocate describe their list as not the best person, but the most influential person.
So
I'm just,
okay,
give me a second to lay this out.
I will.
Although I will probably make an argument that my mother would describe as too clever by half.
Perhaps Jesuitical.
Please, not that. And he has had an impact, his statements.
How?
Because everyone around the world thinks he has said certain things. Now, we've said this before. We have said this before. He has not made any real changes, any substantive changes. We have no confidence that he will make any substantive changes.
I'm waiting for my apology.
I'm all for that. Galileo waited a lot longer.
Yes, it's true. Died waiting for it. And then another 400 years.
Hundreds of years. But if someone says a few things that then get perceived as and manipulated
it's just as good.
I'm just saying it gives certain people permission. Now,
to do what? To do what? To do what? Because we report every week on this show, and Frank Bruni wrote about this week in the New York Times, that the Catholic schools are still firing gay teachers when they get married, et cetera. So nobody's getting the message.
Some are.
Tell me
some
what,
are.
no,
Not the people.
no,
not the people institutionally. I agree with you.
Tell me what.
I'm not supporting. Let me be clear. I'm not supporting this. I am explaining why he is a significant figure potentially. And there was one commentary that said, "Look, this is ridiculous to name him to Person of the Year things. What we should be doing is watching and waiting." He said these things, he's perceived as making a change, but he hasn't made any changes.
Yeah.
Is this a prelude to make? Exactly. So, would you expect someone to come in to this institution, which, as we know, has been built on this rock of hatred for many, many years, and change it overnight without getting assassinated like Pope John Paul I?
That's correct. You
Exactly.
Remember him? He lasted a month.
Yeah, so...
That's because he referred to God as our mother. That, don't go down that road.
And then we got Ringo George.
Yeah, we did. Remember that.
So the point is this, we don't know yet. Is he going to start a process of change, or is he not? He has certainly walked back some of these comments by saying, women should never have any positions of power and whatever. But I'm just saying that he is a potentially influential person.
I want to name my Person of the Year. I can't make this as an official Gay USA announcement of who the Person of the Year is, but my Person of the Year is you.
Now you're doing what Time magazine did a few years ago.
Well, I mean, because we could talk about so-called gay leaders or allies who do a lot of good work, all right? But our movement is succeeding because of you.
Absolutely.
When you choose not to be silenced, when you live openly, that's what changes things. That's what makes the Pope have to sound a little nicer, because you're out there. Your truth is out there, and they have to deal with that.
That's why I hate all these lists and think they're nothing but attempts to draw attention to these publications, draw subscribers, draw news coverage. That's what these lists are all about. They're not anything significant or anything anyone should pay attention to. The Advocate's getting a lot of ink for having made this choice. People are just astonished that the Advocate, a gay magazine, would make this choice. Well, that's exactly what they wanted to accomplish, shock value. The real answer is these lists are completely ridiculous and invalid and insubstantial. It is about what every single person can do and is doing. And
when we talk about some of the people that people said should have been, picked, like Edie Windsor, she was somebody who came out of our movement, who was an individual who, like you, who decided, I don't want to pay this big tax bill, and I'm being treated unfairly.
The couples in Illinois now who are demanding the right to marry before it goes into effect in June because they have an immediate need. They're heroes. They should be on the list.
And think of people like Chelsea Manning, who is not
Oh my God,
a transgender leader, particularly.
yes.
But in the midst, I mean, whatever you think of what Chelsea did in exposing U.S. war crimes, she was able to openly transition while going through this crisis.
Of being prosecuted for being a traitor.
And I'd also like to add Glenn Greenwald. You know him as the person who gives us all the stuff from Edward Snowden. But he has always been out, and here's the key to this. He never let that hold him back. There was a time when people we know, certainly of our generation and older, because we were gay, people just said, I can't achieve this. I can't do this. Nothing is holding gay people back now, and that's all due to you.
Well, I would say a lot is holding people back, and that is being murdered in Jamaica or Uganda or all over the world. My heroes are the people in these places where they're literally risking their lives to go to a dance at night and losing their lives sometimes. Every single one of us around the world in terrible circumstances. Those are the heroes. Those are the people who belong on these lists.
Okay.
But I don't believe in these lists at all. Please ignore these lists.
Okay.
All right.
You're my hero.
Well, I see that Obama included the Who He Loves in his Human Rights Day proclamation.
Yes, he did. Yes,
Thank
he
you.
did. All right. And we've got a couple of more church notes before we go. First of all, in Chicago, the Gay Liberation Network there picketed the gathering of Catholic leaders honoring Cardinal George as he's leaving, saying there is no honor in anti-gay bigotry.
The new mayor-elect of Boston, Marty Welch, says, good luck with this, Marty. He wants to sit down the Catholic leaders of the St. Patrick's Day parade with the Irish gays and try to bring them together so they can all march in the St. Patrick's Day parade together.
That would be nice.
It'd be nice if a New York mayor tried to do that.
Yes, he's got an out lesbian, Emma Wolf, as his new director of intergovernmental affairs. She says she got her start as an activist at the big demonstration in New York in response to the murder of Matthew Shepard back in 1998.
We almost all died in that one.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
It was a police riot.
A friend of mine got trampled with a horse.
Exactly.
Just for trying to honor Matthew Shepard.
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't let us march down Fifth Avenue.
Martha Stewart got stuck in traffic, and we wouldn't let her go.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're kind of burying one of the headlines here. In Pennsylvania, the Republican governor, Tom Corbett, has come out in favor of a bill that would ban discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity.
Well, this is a step ahead for him, but he's still against same-sex marriage. He has apologized for comparing it to incest.
But the bill is bottled up in committee, blocked by an anti-gay chair, Republican Darrell Metcalf, and the governor said, well, I don't know how to get around him.
Great. And the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, out gay, or mostly out gay, got a Lifetime Achievement Award from his alma mater, Auburn University in Alabama. And he made quite a moving speech where he endorsed the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and also talked about growing up in Alabama, seeing crosses burned on lawns.
They do that on Long Island. What are you talking about? That's where I'm from.
Still?
They did it. There was one about 10 years ago, I remember writing to the family of my hometown.
I don't think it's quite the same, though, as in Alabama.
I'm just going to say this, since I had to look it up a couple of weeks ago. In the 1920s on Long Island,
yes,
1 out of every 7 people was a member of the Klan.
I believe that.
That's, heavy.
But luckily, that was the 1920s.
Heritage. Yes.
Almost 100 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, my God, yes.
Yes. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Heidi Feldblum to a second term as chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Congratulations. She is fantastic.
And congratulations to Robert Gallegos. He's won a runoff for city council. He's out gay. he will be the only out gay Latino council member in Texas.
Could be Gallegos.
Gallegos, perhaps. I'm sorry.
That's
but you never
okay.
know how people pronounce things.
That's
unless
correct.
you hear it from them.
And congratulations to Sean Skelly, the 4th transgender Obama administration appointee. She will be a special assistant to the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, longtime Navy vet.
Now, elsewhere in Texas, things are not so liberal. All 4 lieutenant governor candidates for the GOP nomination embrace the teaching of creationism.
The Shreveport, Louisiana City Council, however, next door to Texas, by a vote of 6-1, has adopted a fairness ordinance which includes sexual orientation and gender identity and expression non-discrimination.
But a Republican state legislator there has introduced a statewide bill essentially to invalidate all of these local ordinances.
Oh, we'll see. In Minnesota, there's an interesting case, back to religion. The Archbishop of St. Paul and Minneapolis, John Nienstedt, is a virulently homophobic guy. You know,
He's obsessed with us.
Really obsessed.
The Pope doesn't like that.
Really tried to stop the same-sex marriage law in Minnesota. Tried to get a constitutional amendment passed.
Bad guy.
Got
We got
people
it.
excommunicated.
What happened to him?
He has been accused of inappropriately touching a boy's buttocks during some picture-taking session.
After a confirmation in 2009.
He has...
He denies the charges.
And he's stepped
But he's still very proud of
aside.
his anti-gay bigotry.
Yeah. He's also under fire for covering up earlier sexual abuse by clergy members.
Now, the New York Times made a big deal about Pope Francis replacing a far-right culture warrior cardinal, Raymond Burke, formerly of St. Louis, with an extremely conservative cardinal, Donald Wuerl of D.C.
He's so much more conservative than the New York Times would acknowledge.
Exactly. This
I
guy
mean,
Wuerl
terrible.
has been at the center. See, that's the thing. There are no liberals to choose from.
Well, they are, but they're not in the church hierarchy.
All right.
And the New York Supreme Court has said that transsexual woman Sabrina Wilson can sue Phoenix House, the drug rehab center, for discrimination. She was assigned to Phoenix House as an alternative sentencing mechanism for a drug charge. She has been trans identified since she was 14, but she goes to Phoenix House. She's not allowed to wear women's clothes or join a women's discussion group. The group members were fine with her. They wanted her part of the group. So she was forced out, and she is now suing Phoenix House for discrimination.
In Tampa, the 17-year-old was given 25 years for attempted murder of a trans person, Coco McDonald. The perpetrator's name was Tavares Spencer. The two had met at a party. There was a little flirtation going on, and then Tavares shot Coco, and Coco survived. One of our viewers wanted us to remind you that the person who popularized Mrs. Claus, Mrs. Santa Claus, was a lesbian, Catherine Lee Bates, who in 1889 wrote a poem about that. She also was the one who wrote America the Beautiful.
Yes. All right, international news?
Sure.
All right, let's go back to Russia.
Let's do it.
First, Greg Louganis is coming around. He's making more and more good speeches about what gay people should do at the Olympics. He says the athletes should thank their gay friends and family who undoubtedly helped them get there. And he thinks Thomas Roberts was wrong in going to Russia and co-hosting the Miss Universe pageant. And Elton was wrong, too.
For going over there. I think, when you read about the things that are happening in Russia, I think I'm glad Elton made his statement at his concert, but he's not really dealing with the reality of what's going on now.
Look, I think there are degrees here, and I'm not out to kill everybody, but there are some things that are better than others.
I just don't want people to sugarcoat any of this stuff.
Absolutely not. Vancouver, British Columbia, which was the site of the last Winter Olympics and is therefore somewhat in the spotlight as the previous host, is sending an out gay council member and deputy mayor as their representative to this Olympics.
Well,
That's a very deliberate move.
Ann and I, we got our start with an adult filmmaker, Lou Maletta, years ago, who started the Gay Cable Network, which was did the show previously. And, Lou did a lot of civic-minded work. Well, an adult filmmaker named Michael Lucas, you may know him, is making a documentary on gay life in Russia called Campaign of Hate, Russia and Gay Propaganda.
He's been doing that for months.
Well,
Is there some development? No.
Oh, well, I mean, I can't say.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Maria Sharapova, another tennis star, not a lesbian to the best of our knowledge, says she has a lot of gay and lesbian friends, but she's a big Russian hero, and she's going to be featured as a big Russian sports star at the Olympics on behalf of the Russian government, but says that she thinks gay and lesbian people should be able to talk about their lives at the Olympics, and she thinks that time will take care of the Russian law. She's optimistic.
Well, not if Ian Oklobitsyn, the star of a version of Scrubs over there, an actor, has anything to do with it. He told his fans, I'm going to quote this, I don't want my children to think being a faggot is okay. I'd burn them alive in ovens. It doesn't end there, the story. His fans applauded him. It's a rough I don't want to go there.
He is
Why would you want to go there?
He's a former Orthodox priest. He has 6 kids whom he beats. He beats his kids.
Well, that's why he was thrown out of the priesthood.
Yeah.
But he's a star, and he's got a big show.
Mm-hmm. All right, so as we told you, the president of France, President Hollande, is not going to France, not going to Sochi, and neither are any top officials of the French government.
Is all this being covered by NBC?
Not much.
No, therefore there were some protests this week, were there not?
Last week, Queer Nation went to 2 events, the Today Show Christmas Party and the NBC Sports Christmas Party.
And they had a very clever banner. It said something about, we interrupt this pogrom. Instead of program, pogrom, you get it?
Yeah, you know what the people going into the NBC Sports Christmas Party said when they
spelled
saw
it
this?
wrong.
They said, what does that mean?
God.
And another guy said, are you here to protest us or support us? And the doorman said, we had a banner that said,
would you like something to eat or drink?
Human rights, yes. Russian thugs, niet. He said, what does NYET stand for?
Oh, well, now, you know.
We are too subtle. We have got to get more explicit in our banners.
I don't know what we have to say.
We also went to IKEA this weekend because they did the thing.
Got a picture.
We've told you about where that's our boycott homophobia banner. They published.
I see my friend Mark Black. I see Shep Wana down that line. Gilbert is out there?
No, Gilbert was not at IKEA.
All right. Someone who looks like Gilbert.
Yeah, so they publish a lifestyle magazine. They publish it in 25 countries. And they put a piece in it about a lesbian couple in Britain, except in the Russian edition, they deleted it because they didn't want to break the law.
They were nervous.
Yeah, so we don't like nervous, and
we're trying to give them some backbone.
Yeah, so we stood outside and held that, and then we decided we'd make a little more trouble because it was boring to stand out there on the sidewalk in front of. That's Red Hook, Brooklyn.
You said, IKEA. Let's go in.
I did, and we.
It was you.
We took the banner and we just started walking down the sidewalk and chanting as we went. Hey IKEA, we insist gay families do exist. Yeah. And we went right into the lobby and established ourselves. Well, for 5 minutes, they don't know what to do. And they sort of confer among themselves.
What'd
and then they say, oh, wait, this is private property. We can kick you out. So they did.
So there's no violence like on Black Friday?
No violence.
Okay. Any more Russia stuff?
Yeah, a couple things. The Advocate may have made Pope Francis their most influential person of the year, but they did declare Putin their worst person of the year. Putin, this would have been in the headline, but it happened a few days ago. Putin made his State of the Union speech to the Duma, the Congress, and talked about the need to stand up for traditional family values against so-called tolerance genderless and infertile, and that the problem with the West is there's an equivalence of good and evil.
Well, see, I would have put Putin and the Pope and John Boehner and a couple of other people on my Bigot of the Year list, rather than like the crass ones like the Westboro Baptist Church people or something like that, because they know better. They all know what they're doing is wrong.
They're scapegoating
They know what
us.
they're doing is
They're
wrong.
just-
The Pope knows that we're
Yes.
loving good people. He's met with some of us over the years. So to continue to say that we're evil when you know we're not, that's the greatest sin. I mean, Fred Phelps thinks we're evil.
And talk about evil, a group of Russian thugs in St. Petersburg has online made an offer of a bounty. They will pay $150 to anyone who gives them a name of a gay teacher. This is what it's happening.
That's why we call it a pogrom,
Yes.
which is a hunt, really. That's what they did to Jews in Eastern Europe.
But people say, oh, you know, it's not really so bad. They're going online and offering a bounty for the names of gay teachers so they can go after them. A gay Canadian author collected trip insurance when he canceled his Russian trip. He said to the insurance company, I'm gay, I'm not going to Russia. And he had to fight him, but he got his trip insurance.
They looked it up. They did a little Googling on this.
Yeah. And a Russian toy store has been accused of selling some gay-friendly game. I tried to look that up, but I found something that looked a little erotic. Hard to believe they were selling it to 12-year-olds, but it may be something different. And Obama said in 2008 that Bush should boycott the Beijing Olympics if human rights abuses continued. So he had to follow through.
You know.
Yeah.
He also voted against raising the debt ceiling.
Yeah, and well, we were at IKEA in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Gay activists in Moscow were holding a kiss-in at the IKEA there. So,
wow.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of toys, as you were, Marks and Spencer's in Britain has announced that all of its toys will be gender neutral by springtime. But
Interesting.
They were responding to a campaign called Let Toys Be Toys. And Toys R Us apparently has already gone along with this, as has TK Maxx. I don't know if it's only in Britain or if it's across the world.
And by gender neutral, it probably means they're not having boys and girls sections.
Yeah, no, or some of those toys have labels that say boys 7 to 10 or something like that. They're not doing that anymore.
But we've buried another big headline, which is India. The end of last week, the Indian court, Supreme Court, overruled the lower court decision that said
in 2009, the Delhi High Court said sodomy laws are unconstitutional.
Right, so everybody was happy, and that was a case brought by an anti-AIDS group that said we can't do AIDS education if there are these anti-sodomy laws.
And courts were even adding on gay rights protections along the way, and then the two judges on the Supreme Court, this is how they make the decisions, made fun of it, really nasty.
There's nothing wrong with that, with the anti-sodomy law.
So-called gay rights, they referred to.
Yeah.
So now, what can be done now? Well, first of all, there were a bunch of protests across India. We have a couple of pictures of that.
Yeah.
Massive protests
Yeah.
in 40 cities in India and around the world, in London, New York, and elsewhere.
And a lot of celebrities, Arundhati Roy, the famous author, government officials have all condemned this decision. They're very upset about it.
As have the editorial boards. But got a problem here. The Congress party is critical of the decision, which is the ruling party, but they're up for re-election, and the party that's coming in is anti-gay.
Yep.
And unless they move fast, it's unlikely to happen. But are they going to do that on the verge of an election? It seems unlikely. There is one round of appeal that they can make. Could you take another look at the Supreme Court? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't.
Well,
do the
one of
right
those
thing.
two judges is just retired, so that's a tiny window of possibility. But what the court said in making this decision was, this anti-sodomy law doesn't target any particular group. It just targets acts.
Well, You know, India's mad at us right now, at the United States, for
Yes.
allowing the arrest of an Indian diplomat in New York, a person who's not entitled to diplomatic immunity given what her post is. But the leader of the opposition party that's likely to win the next election in India, he's a leader, he's not the leader, he wants gay partners of U.S. diplomats arrested under the gay sex ban now.
In India.
In India.
Now that the law is
They
back
say,
in
we'll
effect.
show you.
Well, it doesn't sound like we treated this Indian woman very nicely, but she was accused of abusing her housekeeper with low wages.
Paying her $3 an hour.
Visa
It's not
fraud.
enough.
Yeah, but they let her off in handcuffs and they put her in the tombs, I think.
I don't know
and
what the
did
deal was.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
She says.
Yes. The European Union Court of Justice has ruled that gay couples in countries without legal same-sex marriage must get equal benefits.
Yeah. Ireland now recognizes same-sex civil unions, domestic partnerships, and marriages from 57 jurisdictions.
And the Northern Ireland Supreme Court says gay and unmarried straight couples should be allowed to adopt.
Now we're hearing, you know, we told you that the Australian Supreme Court stopped the Capital Territory from going ahead with its same-sex marriage law. There's a possibility of a conscience vote on this. Don't forget they got a very conservative government there right now, but if they have a conscience vote, maybe it could pass.
27 plus marriages that we told you were performed last week have been annulled. The court decision was that only the federal law can prevail, and maybe
What God hath joined together, let no one put asunder.
tell it to the Prop 8 plaintiffs.
Well, they kept those people married. They were
Yeah.
grandparented in.
Yes, you're
Yes.
right. I'm wrong.
Other than, unlike the early San Francisco people when Mayor
Yes.
Gavin Newsom did that.
In Croatia, the government is actually upset that the people voted against same-sex marriage. They are introducing a civil unions bill.
In the Netherlands, the Senate voted 51 to 24 to repeal a law that required gender reassignment surgery and irreversible infertility before a transgender person could change his or her gender. Now, to get this, you got to be 16, and you need a doctor's note.
And there are activists who are against that and say there shouldn't be an age limit and you shouldn't need a doctor's note. You should be able to declare yourself who you are without the government imposing any barriers.
The fight goes on.
Yeah. In Uganda, there is an activist there who
Patrick Lubin Mukajanga, 37. We have a picture of him. He was given the International Makwan Prize from a group called Everyone group. He is an LGBTI advocate in Kampala, Uganda. He works for LGBT rights. He does
a great picture of
education,
him.
indulging on. He does education on HIV/AIDS. He supports a Pentecostal group that does gay welcoming services. He was a friend of David Cato's, who was murdered over there for being gay. And the prize is named for Makwan Maulud Zada, who was hanged for homosexuality in Iran in 2007.
Yeah. Good news from Chile, where Michelle Bachelet has been reelected president of the country. She's very pro-gay and trans-gay. Positive.
Trans positive.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I mangled that. Her opponent was another woman who was very right-wing, biblical, anti-gay, and Michelle won a big victory.
So she supports same-sex marriage.
Yeah, so that's good.
Newsweek did a big expose on how horrible it is. They talked about the war on homosexuals in Ethiopia, which really sounds like the next place we're going to have to deal with. It's just awful there.
I also read a rundown of international...
there they got Orthodox Christians outnumbering Muslims.
And lest you think they're thinking this up themselves, Peter LaBarbera has been in Jamaica recently at a conference spreading his bile. Matt Staver, the head of the Liberty University Law School, was in Peru talking to high government officials there. These U.S. evangelicals are the ones most responsible for spreading. You know, they started this stuff in Russia too.
That's how they make their money.
And they are failing here, and so they spread out around the world, and they want to bring it eventually all back here.
Well, In Tel Aviv, they unveiled a memorial to gay victims of the Nazi Holocaust in front of the city's LGBT community center. These are people who were persecuted for being gay. Obviously, a lot of gay Jews were also persecuted and killed.
And in Germany, the German edition of GQ magazine is starting a campaign of straight movie stars kissing. And they're going to run this on billboards, on the sides of buses, all over, posters all over. This is a campaign to normalize same-sex sexuality.
I kissed a guy for 5 minutes on this show to get people used to it.
Yeah, but was he straight?
No. Not that I know of.
All
AIDS
right,
news.
we have only a few minutes.
Well, all right. I do want to read this because I think it's important because we're in the final stretch of signing up for Obamacare, and the White House did put out 5 benefits for the LGBT community. These plans can't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. You can't be charged a higher premium if you're LGBT. No denial of pre-existing conditions, including HIV, mental health. Don't forget, we were all sick before 1973. Legally married couples have to be treated equally. And no more lifetime limits on coverage for those with chronic diseases like HIV.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, 31 AIDS organizations wrote a letter to the Health and Human Services Department that said insurance companies are treating people living with AIDS badly. Inadequate drug information and coverage, forcing them not to stay with the doctors who they've been with who are experienced AIDS doctors.
That's why there is a website about that, and if you get our email, you will see that.
Yeah.
And thank you to ACT UP for crashing a dedication of a plaque to Ed Koch at his 2 Fifth Avenue building. That's a picture of Ed on the left, right-hand corner there.
Right.
But this is a farce. I mean, this is a building where Bella Abzug lived, who was a great champion.
And Larry Kramer lives.
And where Larry Kramer lives. So thank you for reminding people that he was not a hero.
The Battle of 2 Fifth Avenue.
Entertainment news.
Yes.
I want to recommend the new Dickens movie, The Invisible Woman, starring Ralph Fiennes as Charles Dickens, directed by Ralph Fiennes. About his love affair with a young woman after he'd had 10 kids.
I want to not recommend the movie American Hustle, which I went to with great expectations because it's at the top of everyone's best list for the year. And David O. Russell, who
it's
directed
touted for the Oscar.
Exactly. He just did Silver Linings Playbook and The Fighter, both of which I enjoyed enormously. I know you didn't like Silver Linings Playbook, but I liked them both. And this movie was flatter than a pancake. And Jennifer Lawrence was amusing, but she always is.
And if you want to know what my top 10 theater picks are, and they're really for things that are still running, so there's some of them are older shows, I'm going to start putting them in our emails at the end of the thing.
Does that mean people have to write to you to get
write
those?
to andyhum@aol.com. It'll be a rotating list of things that are running, that are current, that if you're coming to the area, that you can see.
We send out this email once a week. That's all, one email a week that gives you the headlines of what's on the show.
Tells you how to access the show in other ways, like our podcasts and things like that.
So all you have to do is write to andyhum@aol.com and you can get that. Now, we should also alert you that next week we do have a special show for Christmas. And what it is a compilation of videos that have come across our computers or desks in the last few months, but that we haven't had room for on the show because, as you know, we have been crowded with news. So we have a very amusing video of kids reacting to same-sex marriages. We have a profile of rainbow flag maker Gilbert Baker. We have a hilarious 4 minutes of the head of the New York Stock Exchange lecturing a Russian official.
We have athletes from the University of North Carolina and the You Can Play program to encourage gay people to be out on their teams.
The Australian actor Harry Cook with his video about coming out, which is very thoughtful, and the Hawaii legislator on the floor of the Hawaii House.
Kaniela Ing.
Talking about why he's voting for same-sex marriage. It's really good. You should watch it.
And if you are on our email list, I'll send you all the links so you can send them to your friends.
There you go.
But that'll be next week.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
We'll see you next week.